Into the evening session on day one of Championship League Snooker 2017. And it's an all-English clash between Dave Gilbert and Matthew Sells. It wasn't the greatest result of the break-off shot for Gilbert. So Selt very quickly off and running here. This is the third match for both players today, and they've both won one and lost one so far. Just taking stock of where we are in this group, we all expected it, I think, to be very close, very evenly matched. Not much to choose between most of the players, and it's certainly turned out that way so far.
Matthew Selt 12, Dave Gilbert 5.
Anthony McGill is the only player with 2 wins, and Ryan Day is the only player with 2 defeats, but they're also the only players who've played 3 matches. McGill won 2, lost 1. Day has won 1 and lost 2, and everybody else is won 1 and lost 1. So it's an extremely close group.
And
there have only been 3 occasions under the current format where a player has won 2 matches and got through to the semi-finals. Well, you have to think every chance this is going to be the 4th instance of that. But some way to go before we get to that. Remember, the top 4 go through to the group semi-finals tomorrow night. The eventual group winner goes through to the winners group. The beaten finalist, the beaten semi-finalists, and the player who finishes 5th in the table will be back for Group 2, along with 3 new players, and the players who finish 6th and 7th will be eliminated altogether. All that to come tomorrow. Tonight, it's all about the These players trying to put themselves in as strong a position as possible going into that decisive second day of the group. You always know when a player reacts like that the moment he hits the cue ball. He knows he's made a mess of it. And one consolation for Gilbert is that the pink and black not exactly ideally placed, but still it's a bit of a chance for ourselves.
Six.
Self did 2 matches earlier today. He beat the Welshman Ryan Day by 3 frames to 1, and he won the opening frame then against Mark Davis, but ended up losing that one. Davis made a couple of half centuries to win the next 2 frames and then closed it out in frame 4. It's going to be a busy evening for him, because as soon as this match is over, he'll be straight back on to play Robert Milkins.
$24.
Just the right angle here to split those two reds next to the black. Well, it was a decent effort, but needed to get it just right.
30.
Decent recovery shot, that. Wasn't a guaranteed pot. And the cut red to the middle. Now, is he going to try to bring out that awkward red here and now? Maybe try to move both the red and the black.
Touching ball.
Well, hasn't worked out as intended. Always so frustrating when you're just close to the winning line in the frame and you're forced to play safe and wait for another chance.
Matthew shot 35.
Well, if Selt is tempted into taking on this long red, he can possibly afford to. The yellow and the pink both safe. Helps his situation. And it is frame ball. But not interested. And it looks as though his patience will be rewarded, because this is a much more straightforward chance to leave Gilbert needing the snooker.
Salt 1.
So the fact that it is just the red means Gilbert only needs one snooker, so definitely worth playing on. For the time being, he's in a bit of a snooker himself.
Two.
He certainly seemed to be playing that in the hope of leaving himself an angle on the green that would enable him to play the snooker. Proximity of the green and brown presenting that opportunity.
I think I would sit.
And having left the brown on, Gilbert decides there's no point in continuing. So, no big breaks there. The 35 from Selt was the biggest, and that proved the cornerstone of his success in winning the first frame. He leads Dave Gilbert 1-0.
Selton.
So Matthew Selt, a fairly comfortable winner of that opening frame in the end. Oh, and that's a very frustrating start to the second frame for Gilbert. Horrible double kiss. Matthew Selt is a player with a really good record in the Championship League. In both of the last 2 years, he's won the first group he's played in. And on both occasions, he's gone on to reach the semi-final in the winners' group itself.
16.
He had one chance to get through last season. Came in Group 7, beat Liang Wenbo in the group final. And it took no less a figure than Ronnie O'Sullivan
70.
to finally knock him out in the winners' group. So both of the regular groups, as it were, that he's played in his Championship League career, he's won them. Quite something if he was to make it 3 out of 3 by winning this one.
23.
I was talking to him before the match, and he was saying about how it takes a bit of adjusting to. It's a different setup at our new venue here, back at Crondon Park, with the two tables facing each other. Here they're actually curtained off from each other, so slightly different setup.
20.
This, of course, our first day here at the Ricoh Arena after 9 years at Crondon Park in rural Essex. He actually lives quite near here in Nuneaton, so change of venue suits him quite nicely.
Thirty-two. 33.
27. So this is the last of the loose reds, but he has a good angle to go up for the blue. And he's landed on that nicely enough to try to develop the other reds. So I might have liked to not come quite as far as he has. Slightly wider angle than he would have hoped. We saw him play a similar shot in the first frame when he got in early on. Spread the reds nicely, but potted one of them, which was unfortunate. How will he do this time? Well, he decided, perhaps because of what happened in the previous frame, maybe that was still in his mind a bit, and he decided to just gently nudge out a couple of reds rather than split them wide open. In the process, he's missed the blue anyway. That's an unexpected chance for Gilbert. Just ideal here in potting the pink to run through and bring out some of these reds. This could be a key shot. Oh, that's turned out pretty well.
I
think it may well have been a case that Selt just took his eye off the pot a little. He was concentrating so much on developing reds. Only a few minutes after he was contemplating the prospect of perhaps being about to go 2-0 down, Gilbert has a really good chance here to square it at 1-1.
Ninety. $22.
Still 16 behind, but I think a very definite favourite for the frame now, Gilbert.
$29. $37. $38.
mention that Anthony McGill has won 2 of his 3 matches so far. The one he didn't win was against Gilbert, who prevailed in a decider in the first match of the day on this table, in fact. And then Gilbert followed that with the complete opposite, losing 3-0 to Ryan Day. So he comes into this match looking to make it 2 wins out of 3 at the end of the first day. This is his last match of the night. So he comes on to the colours, 9 points in front. He's going to need yellow, green, brown and blue. And it's made a bit more complicated by the blue being where it is, getting in the way of the brown. And he had also finished a bit closer to the yellow than he would have intended. Although that didn't make the pot a problem. He has lost the cue ball just a bit. He seems to be in 2 minds as to whether or not he can get through to pot the brown. And it looks like he may be deciding he can't. Well, this was what I was saying a few moments ago, that the blue, being where it was getting in the way a bit. In this case, quite literally. Yeah, Gilbert did well. I think he was perhaps almost trying to convince himself that the brown would go. Then, having accepted that it didn't, he put that out of his mind and played a good safety shot.
Yeah.
So that now means the lead is 18. If Selt misses this again,
Okay.
then the lead will be 22. And then Selt would only be able to tie. And he has hit it this time, but he's left it. And also because of that 4-point penalty, this is now frame ball. Selt had his chance in this frame. He was in, leading 39-0. But in attempting to develop a couple of reds, in potting the blue, he forgot to pot the blue.
Dave Gilbert 9 on frame.
The result of which was Gilbert's 53 break, which wasn't quite enough for him to win the frame, but the good safety that he then played ultimately gave him the chance to clinch it. Dave Gilbert draws level with Matt Selt at 1 frame all. And I said there he forgot to pot the blue. Well, of course you don't literally mean that, it's just an expression that's used where a player is concentrating so much on the position he effectively takes his mind off the immediate matter of potting the ball. And it was an expensive error for Selt. Cost him the chance to go 2-0 up. Referee Rob Spencer, who's from Stockport in the northwest of England, and used to play at the Masters Club as an amateur player there many years ago, when quite a few of the players on the professional circuit, including Alex Higgins, used that as their practice base.
Third frame. Dave Gilbert's frame. It's never a great safety shot when you leave your opponent on at least 3 potential reds. Mentioned earlier, Celta's good memories of the Championship League. Well, so does Dave Gilbert. Arguably even more so, because it's always a landmark moment in any player's career when he makes his first 147. That's exactly what Dave Gilbert did in the Championship League 2 years ago. And it remains the only 147 of his career. Came in a match against Zhao Guodong. He knows he's passed up a good chance there. I think there's bound to be a certain amount of rustiness with these players today. It's the 2nd of January. I'm sure they won't have done a huge amount of practice over the Christmas period. And no matches for a couple of weeks, which is a long time in professional snooker nowadays. Tournaments come so thick and fast. And even when they get here, there are no practice tables, so unless you get here early and have a knock on one of the actual match tables, which is allowed, you're going in quite cold. So that's perhaps why the standard today hasn't been quite as high as we're used to seeing nowadays. I'm sure as the week goes on it will pick up as the players rediscover their touch and their rhythm. There's nothing wrong with that shot from Gilbert. He's straight back in. That maximum 147 break that I mentioned by Gilbert in the Championship League, one of 4 that have been made in the tournament's 9 previous years. In fact, all 4 of them have come in the last 3 years. Shaun Murphy was the first in 2014, then Barry Hawkins and Gilbert in 2015, and Fergal O'Brien last year. That's a couple of chances Gilbert has had now in this frame, and he's not made much from them. Another chance for him here. That 147 wasn't the only landmark moment Gilbert enjoyed in 2015. That was also the year he reached his first ranking final, and it was a good one to reach, the International Championship, one of the biggest money and biggest ranking point tariff events of the season. He was beaten there by John Higgins, but that was a huge leap forward in his career, and it's thanks in no small part to that run in China about 15 months ago that he's got a real chance getting into the top 16 for the first time in his career sometime soon. He's currently 20th in the world. Now in his 16th season since turning pro. Couldn't ask for a much better chance than this to clinch the frame. Still got quite a few more balls to pot, but they really are so well placed. So after failing to fully capitalise on his first two chances in this frame, looking increasingly likely to be a case of third time lucky. Ooh, and that was unlucky. It's, well, he seemed to get a bad contact there. He's not getting the cue ball cleaned. So perhaps he just didn't hit it right. Either way, he's left himself a slightly more difficult shot on the pink than he would have hoped. And as a result, he's missed his chance. And you can see how disgusted he is with that. So having surely thought a few moments ago that he was probably going to be 2-1 down before he got another visit to the table, Selt suddenly finds himself with a chance to steal it. bit of luck here. Well, he's not been entirely without it. Can still pot the black. Didn't want the cue ball to be so close to the middle pocket. It is a difficult angle. Yeah, there was always that possibility. Certainly the natural path of the cue ball was going to favour him landing on a red, but there was always the prospect he could run into the pink. Well, they're both struggling to capitalise on their chances in this frame. And yet another chance for Gilbert. A couple of reds and colours would do. And the first red is straightforward enough. Selt has played some fairly loose safeties in this frame, it has to be said. And if you keep doing that, then even if your opponent is struggling a bit to capitalise, well, he's still eventually going to win the frame. It looks as though that's what's going to happen now. Gilbert 33 in front. And he's certainly not going to miss this pink. Selt now needing one snooker to tie. But surely Gilbert will pot this last red and put it beyond doubt. So it's taken him a few chances to amass the points. But Gilbert is going to lead 2-1. He needs one more frame to finish the day with 2 wins from 3 matches. Doesn't matter about any of that. So Dave Gilbert gets there eventually. And having been 1-0 down to Matthew Selt, he now leads him by 2 frames to 1.
Fourth frame. Matthew Seltzer.
So Matthew Selt needs to win the last 2 frames to avoid making it back-to-back defeats. He was a long way out with that Selt, and whether it's through missed pots or failed safeties, he's certainly giving Gilbert plenty of chances. He's given him another one here.
Six.
There aren't many instances in professional snooker of 2 players having the same name. But David Gilbert is one such instance. There was a player from London of that name.
12.
Reached the last 16 of the old Fidelity Unit Trust International in Stoke-on-Trent some 30 years ago now. And it was because of him that when David Gilbert was in his earlier years on the professional circuit, in order to distinguish him, he played under the name David Brown Gilbert. I think Brown was his mother's maiden name, but he had to come up with something to distinguish him. Yeah, just seemed to get into the cue ball a bit too much there. I think he's still okay for the red to the right of the black. Well, not quite the way he intended, but he can still pot this red. albeit more difficult now, and also more difficult to get position off it. Worked out pretty well. He's brought a few more reds out into play as well, so it's developing into a nice chance now. In a group that looks like it's going to be very evenly matched among the 7 players. Getting to 2 wins after 3 matches is a pretty strong position to be in. That's the position Gilbert has a chance to put himself in now. Not been the most remarkable of seasons for Gilbert, but it's been okay. The high point was reaching the quarter-finals of the World Open in Yushan in China back in July. He was beaten by Neil Robertson there. He's had a few last 16 appearances as well. Most recently, the UK Championship. A few weeks before Christmas in York. He was eventually knocked out by Jamie Jones. So it's been pretty solid. Qualified for the 32-man final stages of the German Masters in Berlin in a few weeks' time.
46.
First opponent there will be the newly crowned Scottish Open champion Marco Fu. Closing in now on finishing his first day's matches in Group 1 of the Championship League on a winning note. Black will take the lead to 62. So one more red and black. Would leave Selt needing a snooker. What a turnaround it's been in this match. Selt was 1-0 up, don't forget, and he was also leading 39-0 in the second. But everything turned on that blue that Selt missed, while he was perhaps concentrating a bit more on developing some reds. Gilbert stepped in on the break of 53. He's been well on top since. 70 in front. 67 left. But that red makes absolutely sure.
77.
He's already had a century earlier today. Well, he's not going to have one now, but that break of 77, saving the best for last, Dave Gilbert. Not a vintage performance, but certainly adequate. Breaks of 53 and 77, the high points for him as he beats Matthew Selt by 3 frames to 1 and finishes the first day with 2 wins out of 3 in Group 1. As for Selt, that's 1 win out of 3 for him.